There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to the B2B Growth Show, a podcast dedicated to helping B2B executives achieve explosive growth. Whether you're looking for techniques and strategies or tools and resources, you've come to the right place. I'm James Carberry.
And I'm Jonathan Green.
Let's get into the show. Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. This episode is sponsored by Directive Consulting, the B2B search marketing agency. We are here today with Case Kinney. He is the founder of PRSUIT. Case, how you doing today?
Great. How are you?
I am wonderful. So, Case, I saw you in one of Alan Gannett's LinkedIn videos, I guess a few weeks ago, and you're talking about building an email list. And you've done an incredible job of building PRSUIT's list, and we're going to be talking about that more. Obviously, this entire episode is going to be about it. But before we get into that, can you give a little bit of context to our listeners and just tell us what you're up to with PRSUIT?
Yeah, for sure. So PRSUIT, it's PRSUIT. It's a daily email newsletter. It goes out every single weekday, Monday through Friday at 10 a.m. CST. And it's all focused on self-development content. So if you're familiar with something like the Skim or maybe one of the daily business type emails, it's similar to that in format, but it's all focused on self-development content, perspectives, personal narratives, things like that. And I've been doing it for quite some time, almost 4 years. As a blog, actually. PRSUIT has always been a blog, but we made the decision to shift to email only format back in December of 2017. So about 5 months ago. And since then, I've been totally focused, very, very focused intentionally on growing the email list. So that's what I've been focused on.
Love it. And so Case, can you tell us a little bit about the results that you've seen since making that shift? What was the size of the email list, prior to December 2017, and now, that we're in June of 2018, what's that list size?
Yeah, for sure. So when we made the switch to email, it was only around 20,000. And even then I made a big scrub on it at the start to make sure we only had active members. So it probably got down to like close to 15. But over the course of about 4 months, it grew to a little over 100,000. So, I think that speaks for itself. Really, really fast growth. And right now we're sitting a little under 100,000 just because I'm very focused on maintaining the engagement of the list. So I scrub it every single week, every single day. So we're sitting there, but it's still growing phenomenally fast. We'll have days where we'll have, 2,000-3,000 new subscribers. We'll have days where we have a couple hundred, but it's still growing incredibly quickly just because of some of the strategies that I have in place.
I love it. That's incredible. So as we were talking about some of those strategies, some of the things you're doing to get that kind of growth with your email list, Case, you mentioned the first thing was your frequency of publishing. Now, I've heard other people talk about this, but clearly, if you've grown a list, by over 80,000 people in a matter of 6 months, and you're saying it's the number one thing, that it's clearly important. Talk to us about why the frequency of publishing is so key here.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, this strategy, it's not the most glamorous, sexy marketing strategy, but I think it's important. I think anything you're doing, marketing, branding, growth, like you have to set an expectation with your audience. And obviously, I'm talking here within the realm of PRSUIT, which is a daily publication. So even in this very definition, you have to publish daily because that is the cadence that your audience has come to expect. And I think it's just very important that whatever you decide to do daily, okay, daily. And then when do you publish daily? Okay, 10 a.m. You have to first communicate that to your audience and then stick to it. So, I've been publishing every single day myself, writing the emails, drafting the emails, working with my editor, hitting send every single day for 6 months. And your audience comes to appreciate that. So I think it's all about being intentional when you decide to do it. It's up to you and your own market research. The Skim sends theirs at like 5 a.m. The Hustle, for example, sends theirs at 11 a.m. My friends at the Morning Brew send theirs at 7 a.m. Like it depends on what you want to do. whatever you do, just stick to it, because your audience, you're building a brand, and your audience comes to expect certain things from you. Sometimes there'll be like deliverability issues with the email. Just it happens with the tech. And I'll get emails. People are like, hey, the email didn't come out today. What's going on? And really it did. They just didn't get it. But like, that's the kind of evangelist that you want, right? They want to expect you to deliver it, and then you deliver it. So it's definitely an important point. It's just kind of the foundation on which you build your content.
Got it. Case, now I'm really bullish on folks doing a podcast daily, even though most people don't. But I found that the folks that are doing it daily are just seeing results way faster than the folks that are not doing it daily. Is it same in email, or all those? I know the Hustle does a daily email, Skim does daily email. Have you found the same to be true? Is that why you chose to go daily, just because the expedition, like how quickly expedited your results are?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. I mean, the more you publish, the more opportunities there are for it to spread, right? You've published 5 days a week. Not all of it's going to be a hit, but maybe that one on Thursday it goes viral, boom, big growth. So yeah, I mean, the more you throw at the wall, the more that's likely to stick. Yeah, so I'm a big proponent of, creating good content. Certainly I'm not just, throwing crap out there. It's got to be good content. Yeah, but the more opportunity, the more swings you take, the more home runs you're likely to hit. So I've always kind of abided by that.
I love it. All right. You mentioned, you alluded to this earlier, but your second key to growing an email list so quickly has been scrubbing non-active subscribers. Now, I know that a lot of people, particularly marketers, I don't know if they're measured based on this necessarily, but it's a sexy metric to say, how many subscribers you have on your email list. And you're saying you want to clean those off, and wipe them out if they're not active. Why is that? And how often are you doing that?
Yeah. I mean, the sexier metric to me as a list grower is opens and clicks. Like, that's what I want. You tell me your list is 1 million people, I could care less. I want to know on a daily basis, what are your opens and what are your clicks? What's your engagement percentage, right? That's what matters. I think it's really important. I mean, the reason that I moved away from being a blog and focused only on social is because, algorithms, right? Facebook, Instagram, Google, like SEO, like there's so many variables. One day it just switch and you're kind of screwed. So I wanted to control my own destiny with my list, right? You own distribution, and you take a lot of the variables out of place. There is only one variable when it comes to email, and that's deliverability. Right. So, whatever platform you use, whether it's SendGrid, ActiveCampaign, Campaign Monitor, there's a bunch, right? Whether or not Gmail, Outlook, whoever you're sending your email to decides that your mail is good or it's spam, that's the biggest differentiating factor. And there's some things that go into it, but the biggest one is, how often do people open your email? How often do people click in your email? How often do people respond to your email? Those are the indicators that say, hey, this is not spam. It should go into their primary folder in their inbox, right? And if people are not opening it consistently, because your daily email, maybe they only open it once a week, maybe once every other week, Google, Gmail, whatever it's going to be, they're going to say, hey, this is spam, because that person's deleting it or not opening it. So based on that, I've got some protocols set up within my email management platform that says, hey, if this person doesn't open this email in a week, I'm going to shoot them an email and say, hey, are you still interested? If they don't respond to that, give them another week, shoot them another note. So basically within 30 days, if they're not engaging to a certain benchmark that I've set, I take them off the list. So it's pretty brutal. I've probably taken, 30,000 people off the list. And these could be people that signed up with a lot of enthusiasm and then just dropped off, or it could be people who didn't care in the first place and just for some reason gave me their email. But it's really, really, really important to do that. I know the guys at a couple of the other big emails, and they've taken hundreds of thousands of people off their list, which hurts your soul as a marketer to do. But in the long run, it's a really important thing to do.
So all of that, I would imagine, is automated. What tool are you using to handle all that automation for your list?
Yeah, I use a platform called ActiveCampaign. I've been using it for quite some time. There's a bunch of different platforms. I happen to like ActiveCampaign. It's visual. I've been using it. It works well for me. But they all have different protocols built. You could basically build out these workflows that are like and or if kind of Boolean logic type things, and then it'll just scrub users based on what you're setting.
All right, today's growth story is about search engine marketing. Clear Company is an HR tech company that was doing a lot of things right. Their messaging was clear, their product produced incredible results, but they were struggling to drive qualified traffic to their website. Then they found Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency.
Within the first 12 months of working with Directive, Clear Company was able to increase their qualified lead volume by 157%. I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
The other question that I had was more around kind of the length of these emails. Have you found, Case, that like shorter emails perform better? What have you found works in the actual like content itself?
Yeah. So, I mean, I think we have to define what works, okay. Right? To me, what works would be certain good deliverability, and then also good open rates and good engagement rates. So engagement to me are clicks on the links in my email, but I also have to be, aware of the fact that, we monetize through advertisers. So we have to present a format that is able to be integrated with a couple different native ad placements, right? So links, logos, editorial, things like that. So for me, I've always leaned towards longer format. Plus our content is by nature longer format. Usually our actual core content is, 1,200 words. And that's the way that PRSUIT has always been. So I've always gravitated towards that. I've always found it does well, but I've also realized that people are time starved. So I include within PRSUIT's email, I call it a too long didn't read section that basically summarizes everything. And some people like that. But the majority, there are some tools that allow you to basically understand how long people stay within your email, heat maps of what they read. You could leverage those if you like, but I've always found that, the way that I present it is fine. It's a longer email, but if you pack it with value, I've never really found an issue. But, when it comes to what works, quote works, it's all about the subject line to get people to open. And then once from there, you do lose a little bit of visibility, but you could basically back into it by understanding clicks out, engagement metrics with advertisers, things like that.
And is there a certain percentage that you're looking for in terms of open rate and click rate?
Yeah. I mean, I want over 50% opens, which is very, very, very high. And you're hard pressed to get that. We sit around 42%, sometimes higher, sometimes a little bit lower. From there, click rates are tough just because it depends on how many links you put in your email. If you pack your email with links, your click rate's going to be high. But I tend to look at it holistically. And, I like to see, 10% plus or something like that. I think industry benchmark for open rates is like 20% or something like that. So 50 is a really phenomenal thing to do. But, I've done it. I've gotten close. I know my friends at a couple other email newsletters are there as well. So it's not impossible. You just have to be really diligent about scrubbing content and things like that.
I love it. Awesome, man. So the fourth key that we're going to talk about here, Case, is interesting content and having an interesting voice inside of that interesting content. It's obviously, it makes perfect sense that the actual content itself is the variable to success when it comes to growing an email list. Talk to us about kind of how you thought about your own approach to the content you guys were going to create with PRSUIT. Obviously, it's an extension of the blog, so you probably already had the voice down and the type of content down, but would love to hear kind of how you coach people through thinking about that.
Yeah. I think it goes without saying that whatever brand you're creating, you have to have an interesting voice. But I think sometimes I see people whether you're a marketer, whether you're a publisher, whatever it is you're using email for, sometimes people just see it as a way to relay a message. And it has to be a lot more than that. You have to create an interesting voice, an interesting brand about it. So like PRSUIT, it's a little snarky, it's a little sarcastic. We use really funny headlines and a little bit of meme culture to really grab people. And it's interesting, right? It gives people a reason to share. And that's the biggest reason I say it has to be interesting. One, no one's going to continue to read it if it's not, of course, that goes without saying. But two, if you want to grow your list, you have to give people a reason to share it, to forward it, to encourage people to sign up. And if it's not interesting, if it's not has a little humor, has a little some kind of edge to it, people aren't going to do that. The Skim does well because, they speak well to women. The Hustle does well because they have a snarky, kind of cynical voice on business and tech. We do well because we're snarky and a little bit cynical towards self-development, right? It just works and it's interesting. And I used to pump out self-development content that was very cut and dry, very kind of Tony Robbins style. And I learned that our audience, they didn't want to be talked to like that. They wanted people to be real. And obviously, we could talk all day about branding, but I think you just need to recognize that, like, take a step back and like, you're not just relaying a message. You're not just getting people to try to open something and click something because you're a marketer. You have to give them a reason to. And so at its core, it has to be interesting. So it's not an earth shattering concept, but I think sometimes people think about email as being boring and that it's just a way to say, hey, here's something, check it out. When in reality, you create a cool, interesting story, a cool brand, and people are really going to gravitate towards it.
I love it. Yeah, you mentioned that when you nail that, when you have an interesting voice, when you're delivering interesting content, it ends up getting shared organically by the people receiving the email. And I know that obviously, it's not 1996 anymore. I'm not getting a lot of, forwarded emails, from folks, but you're saying if the content is good enough, that actually is what happens. Can you talk to us about the importance of that?
Yeah. I mean, I know that's what happens. Like, not only, anecdotally, you can track forwards and clicks in the platform, but like, I know my content is, somewhat interesting because people respond to the emails. That's the greatest thing about email marketing. It's just a one-to-one connection, right? It's not a blog where maybe they'll have to figure out how to contact you. All they have to do is hit respond and it goes right to me. When I send an email out, I can get 200 responses off of it. And It's not people just being like, oh, that's funny. It'll be like, wow, this really impacted me. And it's also funny. And I enjoyed it. And I forwarded it to my friends. So it's like, I love email just because of that very reason. If you make it interesting, people can respond to it. I always pride myself in being responsive and responding to those emails as myself, Case Kenny, and it goes a long way. So yeah, I mean, it's easy to track. It's very tangible to me. Sometimes I wonder why people don't encourage conversation in email marketing. Say respond, I'll respond. Like it really works.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing, obviously with a much smaller list, with the list that we've built. And writing emails like a human has been the thing that has delivered the best results for me. I wrote an email the other day about GDPR, and instead of just kind of the cut and paste, like what you see all the other GDPRs looking like, I just made it human. So the subject line was another boring GDPR email, a little winky face. And then I talked about, how, hey, I know this is the gajillionth email you've seen. We're going to keep this brief. Did like the obligatory kind of, here are new terms and conditions. And then by making it human, I ended up getting more replies on to that email than a lot of my other emails. And a lot of my emails do get lots of replies. So it was fascinating to me that, you're to your point of having a voice, and then inside the copy itself, encouraging people to reply. Do you say like in a PS, like, hey, I'm a real person that actually gets, all replies, feel free to hit reply and message me, or is it not that?
Oh, I always do that. Yep. Okay. I always do. I mean, I think maybe this is the fifth point, not to jump ahead, but like I put myself forward as the face of the brand, Case Kenny, and I write that in an email. I got my picture in the email. People know that I'm drafting the emails, I'm editing it, and I'm sending it, right? And if they respond, they're not responding to Team PRSUIT, right? They're responding to editor of PRSUIT, which is Case Kenny. And that goes a long way. I think like I didn't always do this. I kind of stayed in the background. I was always content with just being the brains behind the operation. But I decided in switching to email that having a person as the brand, not in a prideful way, but as a means of branding would go a long way. And people know that, it's Case Kenny. He's like a chill dude who lives in Chicago who likes to read and write, and he creates this. And if I respond to him. Oh, and here's his Instagram. Oh, wow, he's a cool guy. Oh, and he's got this podcast. Okay, I know all about the guy now, and he's the face. And it goes a long way. You look at folks like the Skim, maybe even the Hustle. I don't like those guys. It's like we have a team of writers. You can respond and you can reach the team. Like to me, that's very vague and kind of ominous. But for me, I've put it on myself to be Case Kenny, which has its challenges certainly, and there's a bit of pressure associated with that. But it does wonders because it's more personable, it's more human, and people can just relate to it. Right? We're not perfect, and I think people really gravitate towards that.
I love it. All right. So Case, I want to talk about this final piece of, obviously you're doing a lot of things right, but as we were talking offline, you mentioned leveraging other lists, and you actually collaborate with your competitors to help one another grow. Can you talk about the importance of this one?
Yeah. I mean, the best way to grow is, create viral content, but that's not always, it's not always that easy to do. The next best is to partner with people who have similar audiences and just do a reciprocity deal, right? Hey, I'll share your link. You share my link. Let's go. And I've done that several times with several competitors. I've done it with the Morning Brew, for example. Great group of guys. I know them quite well. I've been in their office in New York. I mean, we don't compete. We compete very, very much so. Like, we have the same advertisers. We have a very similar demographic, different content for sure, but it's very similar. But we came to understand that that's how you grow, and we've done it. So, I mean, I think, whether you're leveraging other email lists or, a podcast, there's like a lot of different growth strategies. But I think one of the most effective ways to do it is find someone else who has aggregated an audience that's similar to yours, and you guys both share a similar vision, and just do some reciprocity. It's a win-win. You really can't lose. You just put it in your own voice. Like, when I worked with them, they put it in their voice to follow and engage with Pursuit. I put it in my voice to engage with them. And it was a win-win, and it worked out really well. So I don't think you shouldn't be afraid to potentially engage your competitors. It's email. I think we're all kind of playing the same game here. But so you'll find other folks who have similar audience and just work out something that's reciprocity driven. It works really well.
I love it. Case, thank you so much for your time today, man. This has been fantastic. If somebody wants to hop on the Pursuit email list, where do they go to do that? And if they want to stay connected with you, how can they do that as well?
Yeah, for sure. I appreciate you having me on. Yeah, it's pursuit.com, PRSUIT.com. Just throw your email in there. You'll be entered. You'll get our welcome email and everything like that. If you want to connect with me, it's case@pursuit.com or at case.kenny on Instagram.
Awesome, Case. Well, thank you so much for your time today. This has been incredible, and I really appreciate it.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
There are lots of ways to build a community, and we've chosen to build the B2B growth community through this podcast. But because of the way podcasts work, it's really hard to engage with our listeners. And without engagement, it's tough to build a great community. So here's what we've decided to do. We're organizing small dinners across the country with our listeners and guests. No sales pitches, no agenda, just great conversations with like-minded people. We'll talk business, we'll talk family, we'll talk goals and dreams. We'll build friendships. So if you'd like to be a part of a B2B growth dinner in a city near you, go to b2bgrowthdinners.com. That's b2bgrowthdinners.com. Thank you so much for listening. Until next time.